right, good afternoon, cattle country. Welcome back to Farm and Ranch Hacks. This week we are going to build your own solar charger. I don't know about you guys, but it seems like I'm always one short of these, and so I've really gotten tired of shelling out $600, $700, $800 at a pop trying to get all my fences charged up. So today we're going to build this complete kit for about $275 off of parts you can find on Amazon. We'll show you how. All right, so to get started, you're going to need a couple of things. First, in terms of the actual materials, you're going to need a deep cycle marine battery. So I bought a Mighty Max battery off of Amazon, about 60 bucks. This is something I'm a little bit skeptical about, Chinese battery technology. I don't know if this is gonna work well or not, but we're gonna give it a whirl. This is actually one of the most expensive components of this whole build. This is a Parmac Magnum 12 fence charger. This is good for about 30 miles. Now, depending on how far you need to reach, you can actually adjust this up or down in terms of size. This is what I decided to put together for my build. Really trying to get a little bit more oomph out of the actual solar charge that I'm making, but we'll see how this works out. Here we have the cheapest toolbox you can find on Amazon. This is a 20-inch Plano toolbox, about $17, delivered to my front door. It's not waterproof, which is one of the things I'm a little bit skeptical about, but we'll see how that goes. In addition to the battery, the fence energizer, and the toolbox, you're also gonna want a solar charge controller. This is what's gonna regulate power into that battery so you're not burning battery. You're also going to need a solar panel. This is a seriously overbuilt solar panel. This is about a 50 amp power source. I bought this because it was the thing that fit best on Amazon, but you can get these at a relatively inexpensive price point. Again, everything you see here is about $280 delivered to my front door on Amazon. So I'll post links in the description below so that you guys can check out all these components if you need them. A few tools to have on hand for this project. I've got some 4-strand wire that I've used from some other projects left over. Got some heat shrinks. Obviously you're gonna want a torch for making that all work. I've certainly got a voltmeter here just in case I need it for checking connections. Set of Texas fence fixers. You're gonna have a set of wiring pliers. Gotta have that, of course. Another set of pliers. And then also just gonna have a simple utility knife. That's it, pretty simple, let's get started. So looking at the solar charge controller, I'll show this so you guys can see it. This is a pretty simple schematic for what we're actually gonna be building today. So you've got the solar charge controller here. You're gonna wire up the negative and the positive on the solar panel into that controller, along with the battery, making sure that that's getting adequate charge. And then on the back, this is actually gonna be what goes out to our fence energizer. So pretty straightforward. I think it should be pretty easy. All right, now an important part of this is gonna be making sure that whatever toolbox you select, if it's different from this one, everything is gonna fit inside. So I've already gone ahead and removed the shelf that sat in this. It was really unnecessary. I'm gonna go ahead and throw my battery in. And I've unboxed my charger. It's gonna fit just fine. And now, without even taking this solar charger out of the box, I can tell very obviously everything's gonna fit. Make sure you got clearance to close your lid, and I do. Now this specific toolbox, if I wanted to keep that shelf in there, it would not actually close up. This battery is just a little bit too tall. So I'm actually gonna go ahead and use this as is, but if you do need that shelf for storing other items, things that you're gonna need, you may wanna consider a different toolbox than this Plano. So quickly unboxing the solar charger, you can see it's pretty straightforward in the way that it fits up. The series of plugs underneath that are actually all very clearly labeled on the face of the charge controller itself. Now I'm gonna hold off until the end in terms of getting battery power actually hooked up. That way I can do that last and be at the least risk for trying to shock myself. Now some of you are probably gonna really object to the way that I do this. I'm not necessarily worried about colors on my wiring here because this is so simple and it's just gonna go out in my pasture. If this was something I was doing inside, even in my house, I would certainly be much more concerned, but I'm just gonna go ahead and measure out a few links, make sure that I have the wire that I need to get from this controller and back to the battery to the charger and everywhere else. Measuring that off, looks like about enough. Get my fence fixers here, make a quick cut, get 2 strands that'll go in either direction. Just give those a quick peel apart. I am going to leave my pairs of wires actually attached together again because this is such a small project with such limited runs of where my wire is headed. Now I'm stripping off something right in the neighborhood of about 1 inch of wire, if you can see that. It should be more than plenty for what I need for what we're doing here, but this will give me plenty of room on my ends so that I can make good connections that are gonna be solid. So I'm gonna work from my left down to my right here, starting off with the actual fence energizer, the load that's being carried here. So if you look at this fence energizer, you can see it's pretty simple. This cord is what's gonna actually get us our power. There is a red and black, positive and negative, and that's gonna wire right up into this solar regulator. So first, the light bulb, that's my load. Positive, red, positive, it's gonna fit right into this crimp fitting. Now this probably goes without saying, but I am not an electrician. If you hurt yourself making this video, I'm in no way a professional and I take 0% of the blame whatsoever. So please don't come crying to me if you zap yourself while doing this project. So now that I'm gonna actually take my battery wire, same deal. I'm gonna pull myself off here, something in the neighborhood of, ½ inch to an inch of wire. Again, that's probably way more than plenty because the end is going to then fit inside of the solar charger connection here. I'm not gonna go ahead and make the connection back to my battery just yet, just so that I'm not live until I wanna be. And again, crimp those fittings down so that they get a nice, good, snug, tight fit. Quick test on either end, make sure nothing's gonna come loose. Now we've wired up for our battery. All right, now you should be able to see sitting here, the back side of my solar panel. That's all it is. Now you wanna be careful not to scratch the face of this, but I'm gonna be gentle as I set it down on top of this plastic toolbox. This is gonna come with a set of plugs. Again, if you buy the same controller that I did, it's actually got a set of fittings. So we're not gonna need that for what we're doing here. I'm just gonna go ahead and I'm gonna take my Texas fence fixers and I'm gonna snip these zip ties. You can see now you've got about 3 feet to play with here. Now that's probably gonna be plenty for the standard application where we're gonna be setting this out on the pasture. But in case you want to make yourself a little extra room, you certainly can. All right, so do a little bit of Arkansas heart surgery here. 1 and 2. No idea what I'll ever use those for, but now they've got no end on them whatsoever if I ever did need to use them in the future. And I'm going to remove the shielding from around this wire. Nancy Pelosi. So this is going to be one of those projects where I'm really glad that I was actually filming this for YouTube. Make sure before you cut the ends off of these wires, you know which one is your positive and which one is your negative, because it is not actually labeled directly on top of this deal. So I just took a look at my video, positive, negative. Now there's not going to be any doubt about which side is which. Now you're going to want to figure out how to run from this solar panel inside of this box. There's not a lot to play with here in terms of actually setting these leads up. So I'm actually going to make myself some additional room. I'm going to use one of the wires that's going to go to the battery as a quick test fix. But you guys can see that there's actually a slot back there at the back of the box. That's going to be plenty of room to be able to close this lid and still get a decent seal over the top. Again, it's not a waterproof toolbox, so it's not going to be perfect anyway. I think that's going to work just fine for what we need to do. All right, so I've stripped the ends of my wire. I'm going to go ahead and do something that I wasn't really intending to do when I got started with this video. But I'm going to use a set of these butted connectors here. You can see that hopefully pretty clearly. And I'm going to go ahead and just use those to make sure that I get a good snug fit, given that this application is actually outdoors. So I have checked on the back, and that is the positive terminal. I'm going to go ahead, and before I do this, get this excess wire out of my way. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to insert this butted connector here. This is a little bit overkill for what we're doing, but I'm going to make sure I got plenty of strip on my wire. And I'm going to go ahead and put this heat shrink right over the top. Now,
Don't know that I think this is entirely necessary, but given the effort we're going to trying to make a fence charger that's going to hold up out in the weather, I'm going to go ahead and make sure that that works. So wires are together, heat shrink is on. Grab your pliers. And get a good crimp right there on the end. And again, I'll do the same for this side. Just really want to make sure you've got a good tight fit. That wire is not going to pull back out of that connector. Good there, good there. 2 different gauge wires. Not the best to be using one connector for that, but it's probably going to work out all right, I think. Now the heat shrink that I chose is a little too snug. Reminder to knuckleheads like me at home, do your test fits. That'll be all right for covering up this shielded end. And I'll grab my torch. We'll just make sure we get a good snug fit all the way down. Good seal on that wire. I'm gonna go ahead and do the same thing, but try and learn my lesson from my last experience here. I got a whole case of heat shrink, so be smarter than your project at hand. Go ahead, do a quick fit on the end. That's plenty snug, and that will in fact ride over this wire. So rather than making the same mistake twice, I'll just go ahead, make a quick cut in this heat shrink, and we'll put one at either end. All right, so we'll butt each end of our wire into the fitting. I'm just gonna go ahead and crimp either end. I'll feed these heat shrinks back up on top. Again, probably overkill given this isn't gonna be jostled or out in the wild, but it's an easy thing to do and we got the parts, so why not? We got the other end of that same wire, and I'm gonna take that, I'm gonna run that down and through this gap at the back of my toolbox to make sure that I've got plenty of excess when I'm hanging this up. All right, so I just went through and I actually went ahead and, rather than make you guys watch me do all this, went ahead and stripped the ends of some more wire. So included with this Parmac fence charger, you're going to find the actual ends that you can use for clipping on your fence. So this is really handy. You can just go ahead and use a flat screwdriver to loosen one end, and then you're gonna go ahead and run that wire inside and tie her on. All right, so taking a look at what we've got so far. I have run all of the solar charge controller wires out the bottom. I've got my black and red wires. These run down to the cord that actually goes into my fence energizer, noted by the light bulb. The battery wires are not yet hooked up to the battery, but they're run loose and stubbed out. And I've got this solar panel running out the back of the box and hooked up here to this actual solar panel. All right, so there are a couple of bolts that I've already put together, and I've already wired up this one side. I wanted to make sure this is gonna work the way I wanted it to. Wired up here on the positive connection, again, tracing back and making sure that that is the appropriate color. And I'm gonna go ahead and hook on with my negative side now. Tighten this all up, and look at that. Power voltage meter is actually reading out here. You probably can't see that because of the glare on this camera, but that's fantastic. This is, in this specific kit, is actually a 10mm bolt. So I'm gonna go ahead and tighten this on down, but yeah. I don't know if you can hear that over the rain, but she's firing. Given that we've got this rain coming on, this is really actually a good opportunity to be able to do some testing out and see if this thing is gonna hold up. Now, one thing that I saw a couple other folks do, and that I think I myself would like to do for my video, is put some holes in the bottom of this toolbox. That's going to allow any moisture, ventilation, condensation that does happen to make its way into our box to go ahead and drain rather than messing up our various parts and pieces. So Probably won't show that on the actual video. It's gonna be a little bit tough to get a great camera angle of me doing that. I'm gonna go ahead and drill some holes. All right, so we're done. We've got, just a quick overview, battery, fence charger, solar regulator, solar panel, all wired up and ready to go. If you skipped anything in the middle, here's a quick review of how this is all hooked up. Just wanted to zoom in a little bit and show you how it does. So let's go put it out in the field and make sure she works.